Hi guys. It's good to see you all. New faces, old faces. I'm going to talk about RGB smart contracts today, and we will be talking about RGB as a system also over the following couple of days. So if you see RGB anywhere, don't be shy and come over, please. So my name is Olga, and I have a medical degree, but I at some point got tired of hacking humans because it was too easy, and I decided to start hacking computers, code, and build complex systems which will be unhackable, at least to some extent. I'm also a board member of the 𝐷𝗿𝗶𝘃𝐾 Standards Association. It's a Swiss nonprofit, which has been overseeing the development of RGB and many other technologies based on Bitcoin. So, disclaimer, my talk can trigger a lot of you guys, and I know that. So if you have some shit eventually to throw at me, be my guest. I think I can also respond to you in some very interesting ways. So what is not the target audience for this talk? It's not about being 100% Bitcoin. It's not about not having tokens or assets on Bitcoin. And it is about saying truth about the technologies, which is that all technologies are not perfect. And I'm going to do that. So, RGB, as I mentioned, is a smart contract system. And there have been, I think last year, it happened that every single new project appearing in Bitcoin ecosystem claim that they are a smart contract system. Good to be the pioneer of that, but let's start with the definition of what a smart contract is. Disclaimer again, this is our definition, which we came to during our 4 years work on RGB. It's not like the gold standard or something. So we define smart contract as the way to enforce the fulfillment of some agreement between parties without involving third party into the dispute, which kind of is aligned with what we know and love about Bitcoin, which is being sovereign, solving their own problems, and having technical means instead of relying on human factor to solve any disputes and problems that might appear. But as we have a lot of problems with physical contracts with physical people in the physical world, we also have a lot of problems in digital world. And the notion of digital smart contracts started very nicely, as you can see here. So the main notion was that it will allow us to be sovereign. It will allow me to protect my own citadel. My friends, my peers will be the tribe that I care about. And it started amazingly well. But reality, what also taking into account how Ethereum swooped into the smart contract ecosystem and notion, became a bit different. In reality, the smart contracts that we have now, they follow the pattern of the more governance we have from third parties, the better, because we don't want to be responsible for any shit work that they're doing or going to do. The thing that I'm proud of is the new word, which is correct, which means I got hacked and wrecked, which happened over the course of the past probably 7 years to every single smart contract system ever existed in one way or another. And of course, taking into account all the regulations and all the privacy issues, chain analysis is now the best friend of any smart contract platform that ever existed out there. So, this is the wake-up bell probably for people who want to try 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝘃𝐻, because this slide triggered a drinking game in a friend of mine. He told me that if you drink every time you see the word kill on my slides, if you take a shot, you can get wasted during the first 5 minutes. So if you have 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝘃𝐻, if you feel cold, please be my guest. So the expectation of, coming back to the topic, the expectation of having a smart contract system was that there will not be Visa or MasterCard anymore, no middlemen. There will not be centralized exchanges. There will not be banks. There will not be any trust enforced onto the peers participating in the contract, etc., etc. But in reality, we see technologies which are not scalable, which are not secure, which are hackable in an instant, and which is extremely expensive, regardless of the flaws that I just mentioned already. And of course, all the smart contracts right now are basically made for stipulation instead of bringing any utility or any value to anyone. The question here is like, yes, this is all good, but we're Bitcoiners, we have Bitcoin, why should we care about tokens, smart contracts, assets, whatever? The problem here, the issue here, is that Bitcoin actually, the Bitcoin ecosystem, the Bitcoin players, they need decentralized finance. They need democratized finance because one of the claims of Bitcoin was to bank the unbanked. And to do that, you cannot stop yourself only on Bitcoin as the only means to achieve that. What do you mean by DeFi? Many people think that DeFi is decentralized finance, but we recently came to the understanding that DeFi is actually democratized finance because it's, even if it's not decentralized, it still allows people who had never before got the access to financial ecosystems, to financial means to transact, they finally have the opportunity to do it. They finally start becoming a part of our own ecosystem, which is pretty cool. So how exactly that can be achieved and what exactly should be done within the scope of the DeFi? Long story short, trading using DEXs, for example, whether it's an ordinal-based or AMM-based, doesn't matter because everyone needs to change their Bitcoins into something else in one way or another. Lending, people need liquidity, and even if you have your Bitcoin, you still need to lend some money to someone or borrow it from someone. That's how it works. That's how life works. We cannot just forget about it. NFTs not in the means of rare patents and ordinals and all of that. NFTs in the sense of having a token which would represent the rights of ownership and of authorship, for example, of content creators, of artists, which would establish, it could be their system, which would allow them to still maintain their authorship rights over the art that they create, for example, even if they sell the art to someone else. And last but not least, we as Bitcoiners, who is sovereign individual, we still want and need to cooperate with others. And how exactly that can be done? That can be done through a DAO, but not the DAO in classical legal means. The DAO as a technological framework. And this is where RGB can also help us. So what exactly is needed? What are the requirements from the system that can help us build all of that in one scope? It should be a smart contract system, not a token protocol, which is very important. It should be private, but it should be verifiable because we need to verify at the moment of accepting the transaction whether the issue whether the token you receive, whether the information that you receive is valid one or not. It should be resistant to censorship, but still open for whoever you want to participate in the system. It should be scalable, but without between JPEGs and like Pamela Anderson into the blockchain layer 1, preferably. And of course, it should be very fast because at some point, the amount of data that people need to exchange is getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, and all of that can be done with RGB. So, what is RGB? RGB is a scalable and pure complete smart contract system which works with 𝗲𝗕ξει layers, if you look like that. It can run on Bitcoin layer 1 and on Lightning Network in the channels. And it's zero knowledge based with strong privacy without broken the blockchain. Briefly, history of RGB. The story started as let's put colored coins on Bitcoin back in 2016. Then there was a prototype in 2018. In 2019, the LNPVP association, the nonprofit, was established. And in 2019, the concept of RGB changed from being a token protocol into being a smart contract system, full-fledged with a lot of functionality, revenge states, and all that. And in 2023, we finally released the version of RGB with the last consensus rate changes, meaning that from I think it was July or June. I have the slide. This year, you can actually use RGB on mainnet, meaning that no necessary changes will be introduced. So yeah, this one, RGB is a smart contract system. It's a DAG. It's not a network, unlike Lightning Network, right? It's not a blockchain, unlike all other chains or Bitcoin chain. It doesn't have native token. It brings extremely high level of privacy to all the participants. It's the only tech so far that can work with Lightning Network, already like provenly. We think that it can work. It's not just an idea. And it's also blockchain agnostic, meaning that it can work with any 𝐁𝐸-based structures. Basically, yeah, it looks like this. If you need to visualize it. RGB is here. RGB is represented with the stash of client-side validated data, which a participant of a smart contract always needs to keep. It's the concept of client-side validation stash is similar to your private keys. If you lose your private key, you lose the access to Bitcoins. If you lose your stash, you lose the access to tokens, smart contracts, DAO voting rights, whatever you have there. And it can work in Lightning channels, as I mentioned, and be committed into Bitcoin blockchain layer. So basically, taking into account the structure of the 𝐕𝐶-based system, I would visualize RGB plays like this in the ecosystem, because in some places it goes orthogonal. Yeah. So you should not probably visualize RGB as like layer 2 or layer 3 horizontal. You should probably be something like this. Last thing about the overview, what RGB is not, and it's very important to stress here. So RGB is not a blockchain. It's not a side chain. It's not even whatever chain, like drive chain, whatever. No, it's not a chain. It's not a ZK rollup. We have been getting a lot of questions about how do you compare RGB to ZK rollups. You don't. Easy. It's not a token protocol since 2019, and last but not least, it's not a network. So if you try to tackle what the question of what RGB is from the perspective of what Lightning Network is, you will fail, because the concepts are completely different. The physiology of RGB is completely different, so you cannot actually analyze RGB from the standpoint of Lightning. I know it sounds weird, but it does work. It does work. Maybe don't understand how, but it does work. So how exactly can we do DeFi Bitcoin finance with RGB? In the association, we built a few technologies that can allow us to build a lot of things. So if we're talking about the Bitcoin finance, which includes assets, liquidity pools, algorithmic stablecoins, futures, whatever, you have three components that we already built. RGB is the most robust of all of them. The first one is RGB itself. Then we already also built the Storm, which is the network layer on top of it, and 𝐕𝐵, which is the extension of existing Lightning network. It's basically not even RGB specific. Next question. What can you do something beyond financial use cases with RGB? You can do a lot of stuff. Basically, in the most abstract way, probably, you can just think of whatever you have in Ethereum world. You can just transfer that on Bitcoin as a security and privacy, which includes DAOs, as I mentioned, digital identities, roaming profile key management, which is also very important for people, and of course, simple use cases like voting, NFTs, game skins, collectibles, a lot of things. Next, because a lot of you know the previous part already, I will just go through the basics of questions that we have been receiving. So, RGB and alternatives. DLC. For some reason, a lot of people started comparing RGB to DLC. You cannot do that, because comparing DLC to RGB is similar to comparing blockchain to Lightning, Ethereum blockchain to Lightning. It's just two different beasts. You cannot actually do that. DLC is the way to structure Bitcoin transactions using an external oracle, while in RGB, you don't need that. So RGB can leverage whatever is happening on Bitcoin layer 1, on Lightning, whether it's Sub, it's DLC, whatever. RGB can leverage that, but it doesn't depend on it, and it definitely is not equal to it. So yeah, and one more thing here is that DLC actually requires trading pairs, and here's where RGB is helpful for DLCs, because RGB can bring more trading pairs to DLCs, and you can use both in a more rich and robust way. RGB Liquid. Liquid doesn't work with Lightning Network. We have a lot of cryptographic primitives which are different, and RGB does not consume blockchain space compared to Liquid. That's pretty cool. Also, RGB is a smart contract system, as I mentioned. It's not about assets, only about assets or only about protocols. And like last but not least, it does not require a federation, and it does not require the watchdog. Omni, I mean, it's a pretty old technology, but still, it's valid. Again, no blockchain consumption. RGB has much higher privacy, and it works with Lightning Network without any modifications to the Lightning Network. We have added to the Lightning Network, but we do not require Lightning Network to change for us. On Vault, because it's a Lightning Network layer, you can basically see all the differences yourself. No reports from LND, only one was no to TLV extensions. It requires only for a backend, so basically it's a very heavy, OmniVault is a very heavy technology, unlike RGB running in Lightning Network. Everyone has been asking this question. I'm not sure how to even call this technology anymore, because at first they were 𝐓𝐞𝐥𝐞𝐫, because RGB, why to copycat everything but the name. Then there were 𝗲𝗏, now there are 𝗕𝗏𝗄, separate assets, whatever. So last year, Lightning Labs announced the technology, which was a reboot of RGB technology. They raised 80 million for that, and they basically tried to create a token protocol, claiming that it's the same it has the same rich states that RGB does. It's false. Also, I think they were in alpha in 2022, while we were looking for mainnet. If you want more information, you can go to our black paper, which is a white paper, but you know, we need to stand out somehow. So you can go to the website, you can read a lot. We also have the difference between Ethereum RSK and with stacks there. Extremely comprehensive, a lot of details are here. So if you're interested in technical details and technical differences, go there and for yourself. Probably one thing that I want to mention here is that RGB does have its own virtual machine. It's called 𝗲𝗏, and we compared it to a lot of existing virtual machines, and one of them is kind of Bitcoin script. So again, you can see here the differences between the virtual machine which is required for RGB to run with the Bitcoin script itself. Yeah, I'll probably have this stuff here. So last question, another question. What does RGB support? Whatever is happening on Bitcoin. Full stop. Like whatever is ever going to happen in Bitcoin, in Lightning, RGB will support that because we inherit all the mechanisms, all the changes that is happening on Bitcoin layer 1 and layer 2. When RGB mainnet? Always. Because it's a DAG, it's not a chain. RGB can basically, when you create an RGB transaction, it's up to you whether you put it and commit it into the testnet or into the mainnet. So from our side, we're not limiting anyone to either use testnet, reg test, or mainnet in order to work with RGB. We do not encourage anyone to issue any assets that would have real-world value right now because it's still a very experimental early days of the technology. But the answer to Can I do that? Is yes, you can do that. RGB is already on the mainnet. It has been there for a year. When RGB? So, as I said, 13th of June last year, we released the libraries of 0.10 version. And basically, those are the libraries that have all the necessary changes which you can use already to build your own products, build your wallets, build your DEXs, build whatever. Here's more details on the release partners that we had in 2022. So as you see, we basically finished everything that we had. Few words about who is behind RGB. As I said, the largest Bitcoin technical nonprofit in Switzerland. It has been overseeing it. There are other. There's Bitcoin Association Switzerland. They're not as technical, but they are doing a great job in educating others and in popularizing Bitcoin and in helping to solve other issues. From the technical point of view, 𝐕𝐵 Association is the largest. It's the largest one. This is the one. If you want to support, you can donate it because we're running on donations. We're not making any money out of it, and RGB doesn't have the native token of its own. We are in 𝐷𝗍𝒄, we are on OpenSats, and we have also the donation page on our website, which is powered by 𝗕𝗏𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. One more thing. In order to show people, I'll refer to this. When a good technology arises, it's not enough for it just to happen. There always needs to be some driving force to tell people that it exists, to show people that it exists, to show people how it exists, what can you do with it, how you can do that. And with that idea, we founded a for-profit company. We were founded back in the day. We call it the 𝗕𝗏𝐻𝐻𝐻 company because we have been building different products on top of RGB. All of them are open source, and basically you can come, you can see on the how exactly we do stuff. You can download our applications, you can play around with them, you can see how exactly they work. And if you have any questions, you can also address them to us. So basically, showing by doing, this is the approach that we took at the And basically, you can see the dynamics between the association and Pandora company like that. So the 𝐕𝐵 Association is doing the open source standards, programs, libraries, tools, kits, and all that, and Pandora provides services and products like that. And here, any company can do. If you want to have your own project, if you want to build something, you can just join the tribe. One of the flagships probably of RGB adoption and our company is Senza wallet. It's both RGB wallet and it's a Bitcoin wallet as well. We will have a workshop on it on the workshop stage on Sunday, I guess. And there we will talk more about what exactly what exactly Senza does with Bitcoin as a Bitcoin only wallet, and what is there with regards to RGB technology support. This use case is probably one of the most demanded one in the space. I'm not going to stop on that, but RGB-based Bitcoin, RGB wrapped Bitcoin, which would bring more privacy and programmability to it, is a thing that we have been working on. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can also address them too. Information resources. Probably the most important one is rgb.tech, because it's a website where we as an association put all the links on where you can touch, when you can gather, download, and play around with RGB itself. There's a command line tool, there's a few descriptions, brief descriptions of what RGB is. So if you want to touch RGB, you can go to rgb.tech, and you can see the guidelines on how to install RGB, how to issue stuff in RGB, and basically just play around with that. Other resources include our YouTube channel with a lot of videos, with a lot of demonstrations and explanations, Telegram chat, join us, please, and Twitter, of course. There are many more, but I don't have time to go through all of them. Thank you. Yes, I'm living on time.
We have time for questions.
I read on Twitter that Tether USDT signal they might be launching on RGB. Do you know anything about that or about timelines?
Well, tethering between is tethering between it's not a part of my business, or I have no information precisely on that. As far as I think, yes, they're dropping a few support for Omni and some other technologies at this time. And yeah, RGB for them is a very sexy technology to start working with. But I don't know the details.
Anybody else? Everybody's fine, it seems, yeah. Thank you, Olga. That's amazing.